I picked up from her book. Writer and theatre maker, is the founder and artistic director of Barbarian Productions, a theatre company. And Joe will be sharing ways that creative thinking can help us address the challenges that face society in current times, and hopefully she'll bring us new insights around the stories we hold in our bodies, on what we choose to believe, and on the power of divergent thinking. Their new book, Secret Art Powers, discusses how creative imagining, alongside good research and data, gives us the power we need to create a society which cares for us all and for the planet on which we depend. Joe often collaborates with communities and lesser held voices, and is a popular public speaker and progressive thinker, and a really active part of the social enterprise movement. She is part of a team which has repurposed a disused bowling club in Vogelmorn, and she'll talk a bit about that as well. She teaches at Massey University, Toi Whakarari, New Zealand Drama School, and on the MFA at Victoria University. If everybody can make sure they keep on mute, this webinar is going to be recorded and available on our new website, our climatedeclaration.substack.com, and it will be still on the existing website, our climatedeclaration.org.nz, while we transition fully to Substack. I thought I just might open with a Earth Serenity prayer, that Earth-centered Serenity prayer that it's very short, that I read on Substack just a short time ago. Earth, grant me the serenity to accept the limits of this living world, the courage to resist what destroys it, and the wisdom to walk in balance with all beings. Let me remember what I am made of: soil, water, breath, and time. May I act not from fear, but from love, not from control, but from kinship, one day at a time, one step towards wholeness, with humility, with others, and with you. So welcome, Joe. Joe, we'll keep questions to the end, and I think she'll speak for 20 to 30 minutes, and hopefully we can have quite a good discussion afterwards. So put your questions in chat, and look forward to seeing them. Welcome, Joe.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you, Paul. Lovely to be here with you all. I am going to share my screen with you. One moment. Is that coming through for you?
Yes, it's there.
Okay, beautiful. Kia ora koutou. Lovely to be with you all tonight. Always great to be with people who share similar values. And yeah, as Paul said, love to have a bit more of a kōrero and questions at the end. But who I am, ko Waio, noa Tamaki Makaurau aho. I was born in Tamaki Makaurau, ko te whanganui a Tara, tōku kāinga noho naenei. I now live here in Wellington. Ko Barbarian Productions, tōku rōpū. Ko Jackie Roa, ko Richard, o ko mātua, that's my parents, Jackie and Richard Randerson. Ko Vogelmorn Bowling Club, tōku tūranga waiwai, that's where I belong, and my company, Barbarian Productions, are based. Ko Joe Randerson, taku ingoa, tihei mauri ora. I am a creative artist. I am a writer. This is a picture of my company, Barbarian. We like working with lots of different people. We do a photo shoot every year, and this was our photo shoot last year. It was around protest because, yeah, in the last 2 years, I have been signing more petitions and being more of an activist than ever because of the current situation that we're in. So we wanted to just like celebrate that and make it fun as well. So everyone sort of made their own placard and we did a photo shoot. And that is at the Vogelmond Bowling Club. So as Paul mentioned, this was an old bowling club that has now been repurposed as a community centre. And our company, Barbarian Productions, are based there. There's a cafe there and a restaurant. We have bingo nights, music concerts. We do shows there. We have fix-it repair cafes, yoga, drumming groups, everything. Anything that anyone wants to do from the community is welcome there. And the cool thing is it is run by the community. And I just wanted to mention that I think it was from hearing a quote from David Suzuki at a talk saying, you know, if there are three things that you could do for climate change, it would be don't drive an SUV, investigate the contents of your rubbish every week and see what's in there, and get to know your neighbours. And I really loved that last one about getting to know your neighbours. And I had two small children at the time. My kids are now 17 and 14. But I used to take them on walks with a pushchair past this very empty club that only had people coming in once a week to have some drinks together. And they very kindly agreed to sort of discuss with us the possibility about it turning into a shared community space. So it's 10 years on now, and it's also a centre for emergency. If something happens in an emergency, we're building up that capability, and we just put solar panels on the roof. So environmental sustainability is one of our four key PO, and I just wanted to mention that space there. A little bit about how I sort of got into climate action. I think I was lucky enough to be part of a project called Our Angels OK. That's the cover of the book there. And it was a beautiful project that Bill Manhire and Paul Callahan kicked off, and they were sort of pairing up writers and scientists. And we got to interview someone about a subject that we were really interested in, and then all of us as writers wrote some pieces which are in that book. And sort of following on from that connection with the Royal Society, they ran a series of climate talks and really trying to upskill people, and artists included, in what was going on. So through that, I got to be part of some talks over in the UK and got introduced to writers like James Lovelock and Jared Diamond and their works. And I remember just kind of like reading those books and feeling very agitated and concerned, like I'm sure we all have at different times. And then especially as I was having my two children, thinking, whoa, what kind of world are they heading into? I think also my mother and father very much shaped me being a bit of an activist. My mum was a big part of the peace movement in the 70s, so we always used to paint banners and go down and protest. And also, I think living in this country with our incredible tangata whenua who are here, and seeing Indigenous practices all around the world, you know, the oldest living cultures, how deeply they know and value the whenua, the land that they're on. That's always been an inspiring thing for me. Plus, I guess being an artist, you know, I think making art is all about change. Art is always political. So those are the kind of the constellation around how I found myself where I am now. I remember being at a panel about the climate at Te Papa. I think it was part of the festival one year, and they had panels of activists talking, and I really remember someone saying, you know, this was about 10 years ago now, that they were like, listen, we've got all the data and all the evidence we need. There's no shortage. We know where this is going. What we really need are artists and storytellers to start changing the stories and telling the stories. And I remember sort of sitting upright in my chair and thinking, wow, that is a very clear invitation to do something about this. And I think it struck me because previously that was not really the sentiment that I had heard. I guess previously we'd hear these stories like, art is just like a decoration. It's an extra. It's a nice to have. It's something we do when the laundry's been finished, like it's not really an essential part of um, of our society. And as an example, like when I was working on that book, Are Angels Okay, that I just told you about with the scientists, the artists all were like, oh, we were so excited to meet these scientists, and it spurred off so many incredible conversations. And the scientists were kind of a bit ho-hum about it. They were like, well, yeah, it was just another project. Um, but then the scientists would often say, I can't live without music, or I spend 3 hours a day playing my violin. Or one of them said that, his PhD had been based on a music song, a pop song. And the more they talked, the more you could feel how much art was part of their lives, but no one was really sort of saying that outright. So I think we often hold art, a bit to the side, and I have held it a bit to the side as well. So I think when this person said that, on the panel, it really stuck with me. Um, and I guess I'm always wondering, what can art do? What is the purpose of this strange thing that humans have always done, that adds to our life, that challenges us, that restores us, that calms us, that awakens us. Art does so many different things, and it's always in response to the society that we're in. Recently, I was at a workshop run by the workshop. I don't know if you've heard of the workshop, who teach languaging around activism. And so they were working specifically with the arts to help us find some better languaging so that we didn't sound like whiny, whingy artists, which we often do. And one of those teachers, Marianne Evans, was saying very strongly how much, she said art is always there in any protest movements. It's often songs that are fueling protests, but there's also big puppets. There's communication. There's big spectacles that are happening. So she was like, and you guys are always being called on to use your poems, making visual images. So she's like, you need to know how much art is always needed in these movements. And that was also really nice to hear too, because I think sometimes as an artist, I sort of show up to an activist group and it's a bit like, oh, nice, like there isn't really an understanding of how we can be part of it. And I think that we as artists don't always understand that either. So I think it's a good new opportunity that we can all lean into. Um, I wondered if we could do a quick exercise, and I just wondered if you could all have a think about, like, what are some of the common things that you hear people feeling? There might be a wide range of what they are, but if we think about this particular time that we are in the world, um, what are some of the ways that we think people are feeling? I wonder if you would be able to even just either pop a message in the chat or just turn your audio on for a second and call out if anyone has any thoughts.
Helpless.
Say that again.
Helpless.
Helpless, thank you. And
Confused.
confused, thank you.
Frightened.
Frightened, thank you. Oh, did I just miss?
No,
Yep. Frightened, helpless, confused. Did I miss one?
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, thank you.
Blaming others.
Blaming others.
Preoccupied with the me, not the we.
Lovely. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm sure there's more, but that's a really helpful place to start. All of those things echo true for me. I think, some of the things humans, where we are, I feel like we have a lot of facts and data coming at us. We have so much information available. And it's more, like which information should I believe? Yeah, I would add fatigue and burnout and despair and also I think that sense of urgency, particularly around the climate. I think many of us know how far beyond, we are where we should be right now, like we keep missing. We'll be like, oh, be all right if we hit this in 10 years. And then, okay, we've missed that one. Now we've got to get this. And it's getting increasingly sort of a bit desperate. So yes, that sense of hopelessness. And yet also we are all in different places. And some people, as we know, are in denial. And yeah, we probably need a lot of different stories to shift different people. And that is one of the things that art can do. It can speak in complex ways to multiple people because it has multiple languages. It doesn't just have one direct, simple message. It has a lot of things going on at once. You think about a poem, that can mean many different things to different people. So I think for me, one of these questions I always ask, especially around activism and just in how we live our lives is what stories are we telling? And I think there was a while there when the stories were very kind of much horror stories. I think of An Inconvenient Truth or like there's this thing of we need to shock people with the information. But I would say that what we need now really are stories of action and hope. I think we need stories that make us feel powerful, and we need stories that unite us as people living locally, as people living globally. We need kotahitanga as a call, and we need stories that help call us to action. I think that the story that was told around the hikoi to support Te Tiriti last year was excellent storytelling. It brought so many people together. It was not divisive storytelling. It united us, and it was a positive message, and that was the energy that was present on that hikoi. And there was anger there too, but it was graciously held and not sort of directed at anyone. So I think that was such a beautiful example of really great activist storytelling. For me, just to talk briefly about the book that Paul mentioned, and I guess why Paul sort of reached out to me is I found myself at this place where I'm 50, I'm an artist. Why am I an artist? Why am I doing this when the world is on fire, as people say? I needed to articulate for myself to try and understand what art can do. So I tried to distill my knowledge and thought about all the artists that I know. And this is not trying to be a declaration and definition for everyone, but it is for me. I distilled these down to like 6 powers that I think artists are incredible at. And I guess why I wrote the book is because I think we all need them, particularly now. I wrote this book and it was supposed to come out about 4 years ago, when there was a bit of a right-wing power wave. And when it didn't come out, it wasn't quite ready to get published, and the festival it was in was cancelled due to COVID. So I took a bit more time to write it, and I sort of thought, oh, we've missed our window. I don't need this political book anymore. But of course, we now need it more than ever. And it's really great that people are finding these philosophies helpful because for me, it's not a book about how to be an artist. It's a book about philosophies that creative folk hold and how they're useful to us. And really it comes down to like believing, to, as Paul said in the introduction, what we believe in our hearts, in our spirits, in our bodies. And if we tell ourselves that things are possible, or if we tell ourselves that they aren't, if we tell ourselves that magic can happen and that impossible things can happen, that is what belief is to me. And it's kind of not a very popular word because a lot of people believe some quite dangerous things right now out there in the world. But I think that we need to believe in our positive stories as well and believe them confidently, and start acting them out, because it can be very easy to get scared. I just put that quote at the end there too. If we always do what we always did, then we always get what we've always got. Like, I think we need to change it up right now, if we're going to get the urgent action that we need. So yeah, I just want to briefly go through these 6 powers and see if any of them land with you. You might be like, what the hell, Jo? These are crazy. I can't see this being of any use. But I'd love to know what's kind of connecting with you. So very quickly, the 6 powers. The first one is the power of lies, which I think we all know what a metaphor is. It says something is not what it is, but it helps you get at the truth of what it is. So it kind of deliberately lies. And I wanted to start the book with this concept because I know it is quite controversial, and we so much believe in truth, but then truth is so confusing right now. Like, what is real? What is out there on the internet? There's so much false facts, misinformation. So what is truth really? And how can we actually go against that? How can we be indirect? You know, politics is full of direct statistics and information, and art often goes sideways and communicates indirectly, and strangely you can actually get into the heart of things more quickly sometimes because people don't realize you're going there. Picasso said that art is the lie that tells the truth. So that the first point is kind of looking at going a different way, it being indirect. The second power is the power of fluidity, which is being able to move around things like water. Lao Tzu talks a lot about the power of water. It can kind of hit an obstacle and it just flows around it. Whereas I think often what we see is something hits an obstacle and tries to fight it and tries to destroy it. And if you were raised in a kind of a debating manner, it's always like that one has to be the winner. But water can just flow around things, and there's nothing more powerful than water. It doesn't halt its course. It just kind of like moves around things. So I always think about this when I'm trying to move around difficult opinions, and I don't want to become reactive to them, and I don't want to fight them, and I don't want to take them down. But I also need my momentum to keep flowing. So this is something that creative folk do all the time. Think about actors being able to change roles, and we all need to do that in everyday life. The third power is multiplicity. So this is, you know, many things being true at once. Not being in the binary where one is right and one is wrong, but accepting paradox, accepting there being multiple truths. And perhaps an example of this is, you know, how we can be fighting and working for climate action, and we can be despairing and feel hopeless. And at the same time, we can actually feel that we can make a difference and have a positive view. And I can feel all of those things at the same time. And not only one of them is right, they all coexist and they're in relationship to each other. So creative expressions can hold a complexity that political statements can't. Political statements are, you know, the refugee quota will be 300 next year. That's a very direct, straight line statement. And we need that. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that is one kind of discourse. And there is another kind of discourse that allows things to be complex. Again, think of how paintings communicate or poetry communicates. There are a lot of things going on at the same time. This power is perhaps the most relevant in a way for being for making action. I call it the power of wrong, which I like that that's grammatically incorrect. It's about going against the crowd, standing out, speaking up, trying. It's about not being silent, and it's about not being afraid. Yeah, it's also about failing and accepting that failing is part of the journey, and that's growth, and that's how we get to the next step. It's probably the most popular chapter, I have to say. And then here's a quick question as well, and maybe we won't answer this. We can talk about this in the questions afterwards, but just wondering if we can think back to times when we had awakenings around the climate, and maybe there've been multiple awakenings for us, but just wondered if you could think about, when for you did you get activated? Yeah, curious to know in what context that happened, because the next power is this power of live, which I think, we live more and more online and digitally, and more, I think we're seeking out being with other people, having real conversations that we can trust, and we can sort of live fully. I know my two teenagers, they're often online, and there's this curation of the self that happens in that context. But when we're live, we can really like be ourselves and feel, I think humans are meant to be like that. And I feel that people are reaching back towards those moments and those gatherings more. And the final power is the power of imagination, which I think again is very useful for activism. We have to be able to imagine that something else is possible. We have to have a vision of something that is not currently there. Maybe it is there in some small ways already. It is often about returning to ways that we have had in the past. But we kind of have to step beyond what is there to be able to create those futures. And it requires hope. And it also requires faith, which I also know is a kind of a dangerous word, because faith can be used for a lot of violence, and has been and continues to be. And religions are often used to propel violent acts. But I think we need a kind of faith in a collective future that we can all bring about. And it's different to hope. Like, I feel like hope is a bit like, crossing your fingers and being like, oh, I hope this happens. But faith, like, really believes it, and believes it in a way that can manifest that. And it's kind of magic. And I know these are dangerous words when we want to, believe things that are real and things we can trust. But I think that we have to deeply believe. I know I have to deeply believe in this. Otherwise, I'd be too despairing, and I couldn't mother my children, because I'd be like, guys, there's no point really learning anything, because this world is going down, and there may not be anywhere for you to live. So I have to manifest and imagine. So just as I'm heading towards the closing here, I guess thinking about how we do activism, and how is that similar to art? How can some of the ways that we use to be creative, how can they help us in an activist context? I mean, I think it's often about a confidence. And I think, all those words that you said before: frightened, helpless, confused, overwhelmed, preoccupied. There's not a lot of folk who are kind of confidently articulating visions of moving forward together. And joy, I work hard at trying to be joyful. I don't always achieve it. But I really try to, because I know I really value that in others. I know there's so much to be bogged down about. And sometimes this might be an extremely cynical thought, but I think, well, if we aren't going to make it, well, at least we should enjoy trying to make it. So I really believe in activism that can bring us joy and wholeness as we're doing it. So that's not that sense of the wearying fight, but there's actually a triumph in doing what we're doing. I've put a picture of some of Deborah Buston's art there, because Deborah Buston was an amazing artist, made lots of puppets in the nuclear parades, in the anti-nuclear protests. Well, it'd be nice to call them a parade, wouldn't it? That's a nicer way of calling it. Yeah, I think also doing things together, trying to do things positively rather than reactively, which I know is really hard, because we have to be responsive to what is happening around us. But we also need to kind of have our own momentum for a different future that can continue and can ignore sometimes some of the other things that are happening. And also, I think with activism, there are many different places to be. Not everyone is at the head of the protest. Some people are quietly convincing others to join, or just having a quiet conversation with someone at work about it. So acknowledging that there are many different ways to do activism. I think when change happens, I talked to some beautiful social scientists at Te Herenga Waka University, and they said they were doing an experiment. They were trying to stop students littering over lunchtime at the quad, and they went and talked at lectures, at the start of lectures, and said, hey, you know, please don't litter. Here's the facts. They did little campaigns and skits out in the quads. They tried all these different ways to make change. And what they found actually made the most difference was just planting people at lunchtime who went and put their rubbish in the recycling. Just seeing other people do it had the biggest effect. So I really, really believe in role modeling and just showing people what is possible. You know, it's that thing about not telling us what we shouldn't do, but just show us how we could be doing. I think that's how I've learned the most from people, is just see someone, you know, gently stand up and say, oh, here's the recycling bin, you could put it here. Yeah, so role modeling, I very much believe in. I think trying to connect to the heart, the wairua, the spirit, to the person, understanding what makes them tick, and trying to make alliances, not enemies, which I know is easy to do with some of the things that are happening in the world right now. But trying to find a single point of connection and building off that. I feel people are reaching towards art more and more as a circuit breaker. It can cut through the digital noise, and art movements are often predicting societal change. They're often, there's also a lot of very conservative political art, but often I think if you look to the movements that are happening in the arts world, you can see where society is going to go. And I'll just finish with this. I think, you know, if we look like a party, people will want to join. So trying to make it look like the best place to be, where the best, funnest, coolest, most caring, that's when I say coolest, I mean the most caring, most genuine people are, then hopefully we can attract more people towards that. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop there, and we'll see if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much,
want to say
Joey.
something.
That was wonderful. Yeah, it really resonated with a lot of things you said there, and reminded me when I was in Chile, there was performers, when the lights turned red, would take to the center of the street and perform a skit or a juggle and get a laugh or two. And then I remember I'd read about an ex-mayor of Bogota, Enrique Peñalosa, that and who encouraged theatre groups to occupy the streets. And there was an amazing reduction in violent behaviour from frustrated drivers and more tolerance towards pedestrians and cyclists. And I'm just wondering, we should be, why don't we do more of that here in New Zealand?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think I think some of those other countries have such a strong practice and belief in art. I think in some ways in New Zealand, yeah, there can be a, we sort of came here to, well, I'm talking about Pākehā in particular, and, you know, came here to get away from the old world, and art was sort of one of the trappings of the older world. And here there can be that more sort of, you know, farming, egalitarian community. And I definitely know that in other places there's a deeper sense and appreciation of art. But yeah, that sounds great. Wish I was there. Jack, I notice, has a hand up, or is that
Jack's got a question.
someone else? Yeah.
Thanks. It's actually Joanna who has the question.
It's Joanna. Hi, Joanna.
It's actually not a question.
Great. No, please, statements welcome.
No, it's an affirmation of something that you were saying that I really liked, Joe, and that is the joy and exhilaration of working with wonderful people. And when in my early days as an activist, which was in the anti-nuclear weapons movement, there was an elder that I greatly respected, a woman who'd been an activist for a long time, and her slogan was, "Make every meeting a party and every party a meeting." And it's not quite so easy online to do that, but I think that there is a lot to that joy in being together.
That's lovely. And yeah, there was another poet said, if there's not dancing at the revolution, I'm not coming.
Yes, that was.
Yeah,
That's
I
Rules
think.
for Revolutionaries that comes from.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's a
you.
great saying, isn't it?
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Joe, I'm going to ask you something that's not anything to do with tonight, but
Sure.
what part of Toi Whakaari do you work in? Because there's lots of different areas of that Wellington School of Drama. It's not just drama.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I do mainly work with the drama school. So there's a dance school there as well. And yeah, as you know, yeah, the drama school is full of production students and designers and all sorts. But I mainly work with the actors. And just recently they were doing one of my scripts there. And I also will sometimes go in and just teach a block with students. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Rosalind has a question that she'd like answered, and it's please give an example of the power of lies.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's a book. Has any of you read this? Have any of you read this book?
Yes.
Read
Future
it.
Future? Yeah. I really loved this. It was brutal. But I guess, in a way, this is a big lie, isn't it? As we move towards the future, and it talks about how the planet is saved. That's not true. That's a fantasy, an imagination. But it really, really helped me to believe that there were ways possible. So it really affected me, this book, and that's a lie. It's definitely a controversial statement to say that lies can be useful. I'm going to try and give you another example of sometimes if I am talking to someone who is very despairing and keeps saying how broken the world is and how it's never going to work again. And if I feel that I'm just like getting too tired by trying to argue against them, then I will just say, you're absolutely right. I actually think we're cooked. We can't do anything. And that's sort of a small personal lie, but I do that to try and get an energy shift with that person. And then sometimes because I'm not fighting against them anymore, then they shift. So I think I'm not talking about trying to deliberately mislead people. I like the image of truth being like a diamond with many different sides. And sometimes you can have two facts that are both true, but they're on totally different sides and they contradict each other. I mean, we see this in personal relationships all of the time, and they're both true at the same time. So yeah, it's complex. I'm happy to have. Does Rosalind want to hit me back with something? No hitting. Yeah, good. No, I like that. No hitting. But it's a good question, and I wrote about it a lot in my first chapter, and it's definitely the one that people I think we're just so indoctrinated with this idea of truth. But what is that? What is that? It's yeah, because I also think what we choose to believe kind of becomes true, which is why it's really important what we choose to believe. And I believe in scientific truth and I believe in data and research. But also we've seen that misused. So when it's being misused, how do we Here, let me just see what Rosalind's saying here. Oh, thank you. There's some great things here. What I hear you say can get people to expand their own view. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Is what
Joe, oh, sorry, was it somebody else speaking?
I
I've just wanted.
I was just going to say, when people feel heard,
Yes.
they often expand. That I'm often, I don't know what I'm think until I say it, and then it's not what I think.
Yes. Yes.
And when somebody feeds back something to you, yes, that's what I'm saying, and it sort of allows an expansion, and it often allows a listening to somebody else too. This is
Yeah.
the basis of deliberative democracy facilitating.
Yes. Thank you. Beautiful.
It's interesting, the use of the word radical was used in a disparaging word towards the Green Party, and there was quite a long. The Green Party released its economic policy, and it was hardly mentioned anywhere except to say that it was radical, and I've forgotten the words they used. Like it was stupid or something like that. But there was a really good newsroom article. But he said it wasn't radical; it was normal. It was just that the neoliberal was so far to the other extreme. But I know in your book, I was really interested to read that you looked up the meaning of the word radical, and it originates from the Latin word radix, meaning root,
Yeah.
as an adjective to describe things pertaining to a literal root, like a plant's roots. So, over time, this evolved to be more about solving problems, which then extended into political contexts for advocates of deep fundamental social reforms. So we shouldn't be embarrassed about the word using the word radical.
That's right. I mean, I'm sure many of you here feel extremely sane and grounded, and like you're some of the few people who are sort of speaking the truth and aware of the dangers. And I totally agree with that. And actually, what is far out, if you like, are these extreme policies that these corporations who are killing people through their processes and practices. Sorry to be a bit full on here, but like those are actually the alien ideologies, the ones that don't care about people and don't care about the planet. That's way out there. Like caring about the planet that we live on, that we're also dependent on, is, yeah, as you say, Paul, that's very earthed and very grounded, actually, and that's what the word radical means. Yeah. Thanks.
Jack's got his hand up. I'll join
Yeah. Thanks. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. It's great to get an artist's perspective on this. I've thought for a long time that, all of the science and the data that we've been digesting about the state of the planet and our society, obviously, but it just goes over many people's heads. I mean, many people simply don't think that way. But the way people think and feel can be reached through art in ways that science and data and charts and graphs and so on can't. And I've thought for a long time that we have to move beyond the sort of example you gave of Robbins's book, which is a great book, by the way, but it focuses on the problem. It doesn't really provide the imagination that you've identified in terms of what kind of future can we have. And it seems to me that one of the greatest contributions that artists can make is to create that vision different from what we have currently, because just about every aspect of our current systems is destructive, ecologically and socially. So we really need a radically different vision, and that has to come from the artist, I think. So
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how do we help artists? But most people don't get this. Even many scientists don't get this. So it's not surprising that artists don't get it. So my question is, how do we help artists really understand the radical changes that are needed and the benefits that will flow to society and the planet if we have this vision of what a positive, very different, it we won't have the same kind of material affluence that we currently have, but we can have social affluence in ways that we are very deficient right now. So I can have these concepts, but I'm not an artist. I have a science background, so I don't know how to create these visions in a way that will reach people's hearts and subconscious. So how do we get artists to do this?
Well, I think that everyone is creative, just maybe even as a scientist that, that we can have professional scientists and we also can kind of use scientific method in things in the way we approach daily activities, right? So
Sure.
the same as an artist, we have professional artists, but we're all creative. So I think you can share these ideas. You can even do them. I think one of the things for me in the book is kind of going, let's all try and be more creative because it's a basic human capacity that we all have and need to be using and do use. I think humans are always really creative in the ways that we approach things, even sitting down and having a meeting and choosing to listen differently or make jokes at certain times or be light, or like being creative is about being playful. So anyway, just going, we can all do that. I think another response to your question is invite artists to be part of things that are happening. Like for me, being invited to that Royal Society group, and we would meet once a month, I think, and have a different scientist will come in and give us a lecture about climate, and they put on lunch for us, and it was I loved being taken out of my bubble and hearing this incredible information and being with others and talking about it. I mean, I think try and invite artists that to be part of anything that you're doing. And it is a very under-resourced community in the arts. We are mostly volunteering a lot of the time. So, if you can make it easy by say like, I'll shout you lunch, or let me give you a ride and get you there or something. And a lot of people might say no, but I think just trying to mainstream artists into the activities and things that you're part of. And also just to go back to what you're saying too, I think what I see happening in the arts at the moment is a lot more community practice. So more and more, instead of artists just being on the stage and showing their work to others, people are involving the audience in those shows themselves. They're participatory shows. They're kind of crowdsourcing the thoughts and material from the people who are there, and that's like we can see that is where art is going, and art is trying to act out those ways of being together. So it is happening, is I guess what I would say, even if it's at the sort of the radical forefront of it and not so much the mainstream arts yet. And I would say, because I don't also know what these alliances look like, I totally agree with you. I think we could be doing more. And I think we just have to keep connecting with each other and find those ways together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree that we all have creative streaks, but some of you are considerably more skilled at it. And one of the things that seems to me that good art does is it speaks at several levels simultaneously. And that's not something that scientists do on purpose. So that's part of trying to attract the really skilled artist who can reach multiple audiences because of that skill. So that's what one comment. The other comment I would have is that our climate declaration has been putting on webinars for several years now, and please tell your artist friends to watch some of them because they'll get lots of good ideas about what the situation is. but also the kind of vision that's needed for turning things around and creating a new world. So the more I agree, we need to communicate more. We need to collaborate more. And if you can think of more ways of doing that, we're game.
Thank you. And I love the way that you present yourselves as a group. I love the big photo. It looks fun and like a group of people I'd want to be part of. I love the declaration itself. It's very clear and very positive and beautiful. So you're all doing great work as well.
Well, we need to move it beyond our group, and again, I think it's going to require the artist to do that, not the scientist.
Yeah. Thank you.
And and again, it's with writing, with song, with poetry, with visual arts, with dance, with theater, with anything. There's just so many ways, and our current culture just floods us with all kinds of images and visions of what a good life is, which inquires more and more consumption and is doing all the destruction. So we need that onslaught of, we need a juggernaut of a new vision.
Yeah, and I think that the only way I can positively respond to that onslaught is to say that it makes people crave that real live connection even more. Theatre is always struggling as an art form, but more and more people are valuing being in real time with people because much as many of us are addicted to our screens, we realize it's not good for us. And there's a younger generation who are actively not having phones, and so there is it is turning as well, but I don't disagree. I agree.
There's in chat, there's a message from Vicky. I just wondered whether I could read that out.
Yes, please.
The Arahimai, I'm on the rural connection, so I don't have the bandwidth for video, but I work in ways to engage people in creating the work, measured through mirrored artworks. Multiple small acts can affect change. Continual small positive change is possible and important to all. We need to learn to listen to dissenting voices, to be able to engage in debate without polarization and attack, which is what conquers in the end. Co-creation of the solutions are important. Those who contribute are more likely to internalize change. I have to go, but enjoyed your career. Kia kaha. Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
Actually, I just might make a comment. I think in Wellington we elected 2 Green MPs, and there was a lot of canvassing, and I know the instructions given to people that canvassing is to listen, don't overreact, and I think that was really, really important, because really there was heaps of people that are really really annoyed, but also confused about how to get change. And they think nobody listens to them, but just to have somebody turn up at your doorstep and say, what do you think? What are your ideas? And not be polarized and react too much against them. And even if you disagree with them, it's the listening and they say, oh, this person actually listened to me. I finally had somebody that took notice, and that seems to really make a change. And I think that's why we have got 2 Green MPs in Wellington.
Yeah. I think there's something about holding your ground there too, isn't there? And not this is actually something that I learned from other people on other parts of the political spectrum, is to just kind of sometimes I wonder how can people believe they are right and think they are right without questioning anything. And actually, ironically, that is what I strive to do more and more, like not in a way that blocks out other views, but just in a way that can hold its ground and hold its confidence and belief in it. Because I really think that, humans when you look at where we've come from, you know, and we've always been in communities and looked after ourselves and the planet, like where we've got to is so far away from that. And not everyone, you know, like Indigenous communities have held that for a long time, and there've always been people like yourselves who are uh, uh, I don't want to say fighting for, but holding to that kind of reality. And I think that's where I just keep coming back to right now, is that we need to hold that confidently, because what I feel is a lot of people around me, yeah, feeling all those words you said, fearful, hopeless, confused, and kind of trying to mobilize our belief, like the Hikoi did, and going, you know, there's actually more of us. And I love what Tauiwi Tautoko does with Action Station by going online and talking to those extreme folk in those ways like Rosalind were talking about and like have been talked about in the chat. And um, there's more who are confused in the middle, and it's about pulling everyone that way, because I really believe that that's where humans, like, no one wants the planet to collapse, actually. There's just some like really misguided thought pulling things in one way, and it's convincing because it's confident, and it sounds easy. Yeah, lots more to talk about there.
Rosalind has her hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that it's for me, it's very important to remember and keep reminding myself what it is that is valuable in human life, and connection, and expanding oneself through connection, whether it's somebody with a different view or the same view. I mean, I work in peacemaking and have worked in that in very desperate situations, and mourning together opens the heart and connects, as well as singing together and dancing together. And it's that's what artists offer, isn't it? And this is what you give, Joe, and what I enjoy every time I encounter anything you do, is you take me out of myself and offer me a view of humanity that's valuable, and being clear that that's what one's doing is really important.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. I love that, Ros. And yeah, it's not. I feel like we could be saying that more clearly. I feel like a lot of younger folk are looking for that, looking for something to hold on to. All right. Are there any other, what time do you guys, how long do you guys usually go for? Are there more thoughts? Are there more questions, or should we?
I
I
just
had
say
another thought.
that tonight there was the valedictory of being in the Green Party, and that might have taken a few people away from as a conflicting. And I would encourage people to listen to what Ben had to say. Will be on the parliamentary website, I think.
Absolutely. And Rosalind had another thought.
Oh gosh, it just slipped out of my head that moment. Oh yes, I think about, if the world is ending, how do I react? If the world is about to heal itself and turn itself into something completely different, if we're going to actually make that great turning towards the great earth that supports us and support the earth, how do I behave? And it's actually, I behave the same way regardless. And that is to affirm what is valuable in human life. Affirm the people I'm with, try and find common ground, feedback what I understand so I can understand better what they're saying, and so on. And the joy is I mean, the beauty of the natural world is where I get a lot of it, but there's a beauty in people too, and there's people whose political view I think is absolutely awful, and yet they're kind and generous, and it's to move towards that aspect that
Yes.
is important. So regardless of where we're going, forget about the future. Right now, where's the connection? Where's the learning? Where's some aspect of myself that you carry that I don't know about? How can I join it with me? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, beautifully said. And it's like what we know from
Wonderful.
kindergarten as well. What we focus on grows. What we put our attention on will grow. So if we, as you saying, talk about those things, focus on those things, we make them come alive for other people as well. And then that's the thing that we're talking about rather than the horror show that is there. Yeah.
And we know the horror show's there too. And
Yeah.
it's not denial, it's not rejection. It's just going for where we can meet and how we can question each other in a way that builds rather than tries to knock
Yes.
down that whole dominance thing that Vicky was talking about. We can do that straight away. We don't even need citizens' assemblies and good facilitation, that ability to listen and to speak authentically, but without domination. We can do that anytime. Like now, you're being very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a comment made at the
Oh.
beginning of the webinar about walking out and talking to your neighbours,
Yes.
and that can be the first step in building a community of a street where everybody doesn't take any notice. So what I did was I planted my verge with natives, and every time I was out there, one or other of the houses, somebody would wander over and stand talking, wasting my next hour. But, you know, it was building a community. And now I feel safe living alone in the street full of all sorts of people from all sorts of countries and all sorts of ways of life, because we actually talk, because I went out onto my verge and worked. Otherwise, if you see me out there, I'm chasing somebody's cat away from my garden.
Yeah.
But that is a lovely thing, and it is what I think James Drury, you wrote a quote from David Dellinger. I always emphasize that in the long run, one can't satisfactorily say no to war, violence, and injustice unless one is simultaneously saying yes to life, love, and laughter.
Beautiful quote.
Oh, those are wonderful ending points. I think you know, the country profiles show that the happiest countries are the ones that they have the most connected communities, not the wealthiest. And you know, we know that having a stronger community you know, brings us together and here and makes a real difference. Yeah. Thank you so much to everybody that's contributed and especially to Joe, who's begun this conversation. I'm sure lots of other, it will be a valuable webinar to go back to, and I hope a lot of other people will go to the website and listen to it. That perhaps they had conflicting meetings that they weren't able to turn up this evening. But many, many thanks, Joe, for your time and for the work
Pleasure.
you're doing amongst the community, which is really, really positive.
And thanks to you for all your work, and lovely to meet you all today. I hope our paths cross again.
Thanks, Joe. That was very
Be well.
inspirational.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Marie.
Bye.
Maria.
Bye.
Pray for artists.